A warm welcome to Professor Dr. Swaran Singh, Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Harshita. Thank you, Nandini, for inviting me into this program. Honorable Srimati Rekha Sharma ji, Professor Alka Parekh, my other colleagues on the podium, and people who have come to attend this program from all over the country. I am always amazed by the energy of Dr. Nandini Vashisht to be able to collect so many people, and this time I noticed there is a whole session on books. These are either proposed books or these are books that are already published on human security. To bring out that size of large number of publications is very impressive in terms of outcome of any such exercise. I understand many of participants will be joining online in hybrid mode. I understand that maybe some of them are already with us listening to the proceedings that we are having now. I will briefly touch upon what is happening to the broader area of security. Life is transforming in all sectors, whichever sector you focus on, whether it is poetry or surgery or economy, geography, all sectors are constantly evolving. So you must have often heard, change is the only permanent reality in human universe. And the singular most powerful force or factor that pushes for this constant change is technology. And technology is always value free. It is the creators, it is the owners of technology who determine whether to make technologies more destructive or make technologies more constructive. So value addition is a social phenomenon to any technology. But unfolding of technology is an unstoppable juggernaut and there is no escaping it. I sometimes tell young students, there are things that are beyond our control. For example, all of us human beings have our own stories. There is no human being who does not have his or her own stories in mind. And stories have often inspired fiction. And fiction, to cut it very short, I want to be almost telegraphic, fiction sometimes leads to all kinds of imaginations, and when imaginations are pursued very seriously in a logical fashion, then that leads to philosophy, which is also called mother of sciences. Philosophy leads to science, science leads to technology. I am determining the whole sequence of where technology comes in, which pushes for change. When technology comes in, it has to be massified. No idea of science will survive unless it is useful for everyone, or at least large number of people, which is done through turning idea of science into technology, and technology changes our lives. For example, in old 50, 30, 40 years back, we used to pick up the phone and we will know who on the other side is picking up the phone, where that person could be sitting, even imagining what that person could be wearing. And we always greeted by saying good morning, good afternoon, namaste. Now we live in a cell phone world. So our values have changed. Our greetings have changed. Now we say where are you? Or we say, can I speak to you? So when our values change, not basic values, but how we operationalize values. When our method of operationalizing values change, our fiction changes. And the cycle continues. Fiction, philosophy, science, technology. Technology leads to new ways of life, new fiction, new science, new philosophy. So in security as well, to come to the point, our imaginations of security have constantly changed thanks to constant unfolding of new technologies. In ancient times, most of you are familiar with the Mongol Empire. Mongol Empire was the first large global empire, which was achieved on a horseback. And revolution was discovery of stirrup. Stirrup is the place where we put our feet when we sit on the horse. When horseman had access to stirrup, not only his balance on the horse changed, his hands were now free. That leads to first revolution in security, both in terms of hunting and war. Run back now, much fast forward, we move to Industrial Revolution. Germans for the first time produced rapid fire weapons. You hear of AK-47 now, AK-56. Discovery of rapid fire weapons separated hunting from war. You could not use a rapid fire weapon to kill an animal which you wanted to eat. Now, weapons of war and weapons of hunting became different. So one can go on talking about how, let's say, Leonardo da Vinci had imagined flying machines in, I think, 1480. And the flying machines appeared in First World War in 1920s. Imaginations lead to science and technology, and that changes our life. So whether it is submarines, aeroplanes, main battle tanks, our imaginations of national security in 20th century were very war-centric. War was the only time we thought of security. And after war, we wanted to create peace. But we are now in 21st century. Our imagination of both security and peace is very different. Today, world is so interconnected, world is so interdependent that in 20th century, most of the new technologies were result of either First World War or Second World War or Cold War. So war is the context in which new technologies arrived. So most of new technologies were imagined to be destructive. In 21st century, that mindset still impacts how we imagine security. The most recent debate, in fact, last month, Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar was delivering Air Commodore Jasjit Singh Memorial Lecture. Air Commodore Jasjit Singh is a big name in security. And he said, today we are debating about artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence could potentially prove to be as game-changing as nuclear revolution was. So I want to just in 5 minutes speak about this whole debate on convergence of artificial intelligence and nuclear weapons, which is how global security is going to be impacted upon. Because security now is really widespread, from environmental security to social security to political security, economic security. Focus on nuclear weapons has perhaps reduced. Climate change has become a bigger issue now. But nuclear weapons are still there. And now if artificial intelligence is going to be converged with nuclear weapons, imagine what could happen in future. We had atomic weapons, and then we have nuclear weapons, then we had thermonuclear weapons. Now we are adding artificial intelligence to nuclear weapons. So the same 20th century fear-minded imagination is driving our approach to whether artificial intelligence should have convergence with nuclear weapons. Last year, US Congress was debating for about 3 months about legislating on ban of use of AI in case of nuclear weapons or nuclear establishments. When legislation was not possible, President Joe Biden issued an executive order that use of AI should be banned when it comes to nuclear establishments. US considers China as the most important challenge, and therefore in their negotiation with Chinese, they added this on the agenda that artificial intelligence should be banned from any use in nuclear weapons. November last year, President Joe Biden met Chinese President Xi Jinping in San Francisco along with the APEC summit. This issue was discussed, how to evolve ban on use of artificial intelligence into nuclear weapons. This month on 10th in South Korea, there was a summit meeting of 100 nations who signed a draft agreement banning use of artificial intelligence on nuclear weapons. China was attending. China did not sign that agreement. So there is a whole paranoia, fear-driven approach to disallowing use of artificial intelligence in nuclear weapons. That has resulted in August last month, there is a nuclear non-proliferation treaty which has every 5 years review conference. And every year during the 5 years there is a preparatory committee meeting. It's called PrepCom. So PrepCom for the 2026 review conference in August held a meeting in Geneva. And entire discussion continued to be focused on this concern about artificial intelligence convergence with nuclear weapons. And there were calls that the P5, which is permanent 5 in UN Security Council, which are also nuclear weapon states under NPT, they should start a P5 process to ensure this ban of artificial intelligence in nuclear establishment. Now, why I keep saying is this fear-driven approach is because this fear-driven approach has virtually impacted, halted great powers' efforts in focusing on arms control, on disarmament, on safety, security, safeguards of nuclear weapons, which are still there. In fact, China is expanding its number of nuclear weapons. And if you believe Americans, China will have more nuclear weapons than either Russia or United States by 2030. Now that is not getting enough attention because whole focus has shifted to disconnecting artificial intelligence from nuclear arsenals. How does India see it? In fact, last month only, there is another major report of people from Canada, UK and US. And these are nuclear regulatory commissions of these 3 states who have brought out a scientific approach driven report to say artificial intelligence can help provide safety, security, safeguards to nuclear weapons. Artificial intelligence can protect people who are getting exposed to nuclear accidents or overdose of radiation and so on. Artificial intelligence can save miscalculations, misinformation. It can produce more accurate assessments. Of course, convergence of artificial intelligence into nuclear weapons would mean that your efficiency will increase along with accuracy, and therefore the time for decision making for humans will be further restricted. Now that concern is genuine, that maybe some nations will be tempted to automate the whole process of detection, targeting and launch of counterattacks. So what we call second strike could become much more vulnerable in nuclear scenarios. But many other countries, including India, are convinced that like any technology in human history, artificial intelligence also has positive side, constructive side. And India has been using artificial intelligence to build new synergies in India's conventional weapons and of course nuclear weapons. In fact, neighboring Pakistan also has similar exercise going on there. Chinese have similar exercise going on there. In fact, recently when Prime Minister was in US, India became member of the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence. India last year held a summit on global summit on artificial intelligence. So some of these other nations are pushing the idea that you should not throw, as we say, baby with the bath water. There is a positive side of artificial intelligence. One can look at to make nuclear weapons much more predictable, much more safe, secure, and ensure that no knee-jerk reaction pushes to any counter-attack by mistake, by imagining that they are under attack. So in that sense, India and some nations are debating as to what are the issues that should be foremost issues in debating convergence of artificial intelligence and nuclear weapons. Who are the countries that should be debating these issues? For example, India is not seen as a nuclear weapon state under NPT, but India, Pakistan are nuclear weapon states. Should they be also part of these discussions? So fundamentally, nations like India are pushing that one should be more scientific, pragmatic, rather than only fiction-driven fears. Many of us have perhaps seen many Hollywood films. In 1991, I think there was a Hollywood film called The Terminator 2, in which they showcased that the global net develops self-awareness. You have seen many of these movies where robots develop emotions and so on. In reality, artificial intelligence can answer few questions as of now, layman's questions. Artificial intelligence has not as yet reached of self-awareness, of thinking by itself. That's only fiction. So fiction can inspire, fiction need not be always misguiding, but fiction cannot drive our decisions. Worst case imaginations cannot drive our decisions how to incorporate new technologies into our everyday life. Many of you are using, for example, ChatGPT. Many students in my universities use it. I call it over-enthusiastic young intern. Nothing more than that. ChatGPT cannot replace our task as of now. It can only replace the most mundane task. So I call ChatGPT as the most enthusiastic, because it is very efficient, most enthusiastic young intern who will gain wisdom maybe over next 50 years. Maybe. Not all young interns gain wisdom in next 50 years. So the focus that countries like India have is that artificial intelligence has so many constructive and positive contributions to make. And when it comes to a limited area of nuclear weapons, India is a nuclear weapon state, we should explore how artificial intelligence can make predictability more reliable, usability more reliable, safety, security, safeguard more reliable, and banning it would actually mean that the rogue states, say North Korea, which is not part of the scheme of things, could be going ahead and doing that convergence, which will become disadvantage to major countries like United States, Russia, China, France, Britain, India, Israel, Pakistan, and so on, which are nuclear weapon states. So that I thought was a kind of current frontier debate on how global security is being imagined. Of course, I have seen several papers discussing from child security to environment security to cyberbullying, and there's a whole spectrum of things that today are seen as part and parcel of how we imagine security. Security is no longer something that is only physical security. It's not only that happens only on the borders, it happens in our everyday life. In fact, feminist discourse, I'm aware of the majority of women on the podium. Feminist discourse has itself transformed our understanding of security. So I wanted to only focus on a limited frontier debate on where security is going in terms of convergence of artificial intelligence and nuclear technologies. I'll stop here, and I look forward to these 2 days of presentations, and I hope I'll get access to either listening to you online or reading your papers later. But a very impressive menu of large number of papers, including a very special session on books, which I have not seen in any conference before. My best wishes to the conference and to all the speakers who have come from all over India, and of course from, I think, neighboring countries. Also, I see there's a group of people from, scholars from Bangladesh are here. So best wishes, and my compliments again to both Harshita and Nandini Vishesha.